In this video we'll take a behind the scenes look at how the sample Viewbox to implement an iOS style login screen was implemented. So you can see here we have a UX component with a Viewbox control that implements an iOS style login, and when I tap on a button over here, it indicates we've pressed one button, two buttons, three buttons, four buttons, and now we've got the correct code. And if we clear that and we go here and we type in, say, an incorrect value, then it tells us that we have the wrong value. So let's go now, start from scratch, and see what's going on behind the scenes. So we'll go here and we'll delete the existing Viewbox, and we'll go now to our data controls and choose a Viewbox, and then go to the Viewbox properties, and we'll go here and say load sample Viewbox, and we'll choose an iOS style login. So what that has done for us is it's created the actual layout, it's defined some static JSON as the data source for this Viewbox, and it's defined two items over here. So let's go first to the data source. So the data source here we can see is just a very simple JavaScript object that has a single property called passcode, which is initially set to blank. Then when we go and look at the actual Viewbox layout, we can see that we have the buttons. Each button, 1, 2, 3, 4, is a button, and we can see that the buttons all use a class of button container. So if we go now and look at our CSS, we can see that button container basically is defined over here, and then inside button container we have a class for button, which defines what buttons that are inside a button container look like. And you can see this is where we've done the rounded border on the buttons, and we've basically given the buttons the appearance that they have. So if we go back to our layout over here, we can see this. Then above the buttons we have the little circles that indicate how many buttons you've pressed. So you can see you have these little circles over here. When I click the first one, then the second one, then the third one, etc. So basically that's been done by taking these little circles over here, and then if the passcode.length, so passcode, you recall, is the data object that this Viewbox uses, and if the length of that passcode field is greater than 1, then we're setting the class on this little div to be number selected. If we go look at number selected over here, so we'll go there and choose number selected, we can see that number selected is setting a background color of a gray background. So let's go back now to the layout, and then we can also see now that when we tap on any one of the buttons, we're going to basically fire the events associated with the item called button. So let's go now and take a look at the button item over there, and the on-click event here is going to set the value in the passcode field in the data object. So we can see here in the help that this .data is the Viewbox data that gets passed into the event handler. So this .data.passcode is the actual value of the passcode field in the data object, and what we're doing over here is just appending to the end of that the value v, which is the value that was clicked on. So this value v is defined in the a5-value property. So if we go to the layout over here, we can see that button number 1 has a value of 1, and button number 2 has a value of 2, etc. So when we go back to the items over here, initially the passcode is blank, and then when we click on the first number, we're going to take whatever the passcode is and add the value to it. So if we click on 1, the passcode will now be 1. If we click on 2 as the next button, the passcode will now be 1, 2, etc. So let's pause now and pick this up in the next video. So we're continuing now our look at what's going on behind the scenes in the iOS login sample viewbox component. So this is basically setting the value of the passcode property in the data object that the viewbox is using, and then if the passcode has a length of 4, we're checking if it matches the target value of 1, 2, 3, 4, and if it does, we put up an alert saying that the value is correct. Otherwise, we basically clear the passcode out and then refresh the viewbox, and you can see we actually call the viewbox, we refresh the viewbox here after every single click as well. So this explains how the viewbox value is set by this item event over here. And then if we click on the clear button, so you can see in the layout here we have a button called clear over there, and the item that this button uses is called clear, and the code on the clear event here just sets the data.passcode to be a null string and then refreshes the viewbox. So what we've shown over here is how this iOS style login was created using a simple viewbox. Most of the work in this viewbox is done in the styling of this HTML that represents the viewbox HTML, and then there's a very small amount of code in the event handler that increments the passcode value, which is what the data field used by the viewbox is called when the user taps on one of the buttons. Thanks very much for watching.